You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here today. I'm Kirk Mona, and joining me are Rachel Gimza and Victoria Thompson. We're all naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders, just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. It is so great to be here with my co-host today. How you doing?
Doing great. Good to be with you.
Yeah. Good to be with you too. I'm doing really well. I just moved, so oof.
We're
tired.
all
But
very
good.
excited for Rachel's move.
Rachel no longer lives in the boreal forest. She has joined
I do not.
the big woods, like
I
that's
have.
the rest of us.
And
That is to say,
movement.
the Twin Cities.
the Twin Cities, yeah. And I've even somehow looped my way back in to work at the place where we all met. Kirk has
That's
to see
true.
me all the time now.
Yeah.
So.
Almost every day. Yep.
Now I'm even more the odd one out. But that's okay. I still love you guys.
We need
still love you
odd
too.
people since it's a show about strange
Weird
things.
Oh, it's so good.
Well,
We love having you.
All right. Well, today I want to talk to you about Charles Dennison King, better known as Denny King. He was born in 1909 in Tasmania. And from what I can gather, he spent his whole life there, aside from when he fought in World War II. He was a naturalist, ornithologist, artist, and tin miner by profession. He was passionate about the flora and fauna of Tasmania. And one of the things he is best known for is his activism to preserve the beautiful orange-billed parrot, a species that sadly is still critically endangered today. And there are fears that it could go extinct. And a lot of people still working on that. But Denny King, he knew about extinct species. He actually discovered an extinct species of tree in the workings of his tin mine. This would be a fossil of an extinct species. And it was named after him. And that's actually not the only species named after him. He helped science discover and describe other new species as well, including a species of eyebright and a flowering evergreen. So there's a third species of plant that he is credited with discovering. That is a living species of plant that he's credited with discovering. And that's the one I want to talk about today, because in my mind, it is surely the strangest of them all.
Okay.
In this case, the common name of the species is named after him instead of the scientific name. It's called either King's Holly or King's Lomatia. And King's Lomatia is probably the better common name, as it isn't a holly at all. It's a Lomatia. And I sure hope I'm saying that right, because it's never a plant I've encountered in my life. But I will say the leaves do look a bit like holly, so I can see why it has that other common name. So this species of Lomatia is actually called Lomatia tasmanica, is the scientific name, which just means the Tasmanian Lomatia. Many of our listeners will have never heard of or seen a Lomatia before, but some may have.
That would include me.
Yeah, well, we're not from the right part of the world. There are 12 different species that are around the world. I shouldn't say around the world, I guess. They're found in Australia and South America, which is very cool because that means they're considered an Antarctic flora. So if you're not familiar with that term, basically what it means is that these plants all date back to Gondwanaland, when Australia, Antarctica, and South America were all connected. I think it's pretty obvious why there's not any growing in Antarctica at this time. There probably were historically, but there's 9 species of this plant that grow in Australia and 3 that grow in Chile. So Lomatia are evergreen flowering plants. And I'm being a little vague and calling them just plants because depending on the species, they sort of present differently. Everything from a little foot high little plant to like a small tree, like 39 feet or 12 meters tall. So there can be some variation within this genus. They all seem to have this inflorescence of white flowers, except for King's Lomatia, which has beautiful red flowers. The flowers look pretty much the same. They just happen to be red, which is kind of cool. That makes this one stand out from the rest. Now, just last week, I talked about a flowering palm tree that was strange because the flowers and fruit both grow underground. And this week, there is something strange about the flowers of this plant as well. And what's strange about this one is that they never form fruit. And because they don't turn into fruit, that means they can never make seeds. That seems strange to you?
Yeah.
So that means that Lomatia tasmanica is completely sterile and incapable of sexual reproduction.
Huh.
That's very strange.
It's really weird. Yeah.
So it only reproduces like
the gears are turning
by propagation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this species relies completely on vegetative reproduction. And if you ever propagated houseplants through cuttings, you have also taken part in vegetative reproduction. Basically, this plant readily roots in the ground. It lives in a rainforest, and pretty much any part that touches the ground or breaks off and falls onto the ground can grow into a new plant. Now, there are other plants, obviously, that can do that, but as to why it has to produce this way, it's because of a genetic quirk that it picked up at some point. Genetically, this plant is a triploid, which means it has 3 copies of each chromosome instead of 2.
Oh, awkward.
Which don't make any sense. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. This kind of condition can actually happen in animals, including humans, but it's fatal in animals.
Yeah.
For this plant, it just goes on living and living and living and living. And the only real catch, apparently, is that it makes the plant infertile. Now, this particular species of Lomatia can grow up to 26 feet tall and have a 3-inch in diameter trunk. So I guess I'd call that like a really large shrub or maybe a small tree. I guess technically it can get longer than 26 feet, but it starts to kind of bend over under its own weight if it gets taller than that. They are fairly long-lived. They can live up to 300 years, which is pretty impressive for such a small tree.
Yeah.
I think of things that live a long time as being really big, like really big, huge trees. This thing could be 26 feet tall, 3 inches across, and only be 300 years old, which makes sort of no sense in my brain.
That's nuts.
This, as you say, Rachel, it's nuts. It is very interesting. And being a triploid and infertile, these things are all strange, but it is not the coolest thing about this plant.
What?
Yeah. So just a moment ago.
That was already weird enough.
I know.
Yeah, that was bizarre on its own.
I said that they can live to be 300 years old, but as we've talked about on the show before, if you can essentially clone yourself, then all living members of that species are not, in one sense, really separate entities.
Right.
They're all just the same plant that keeps regenerating for thousands of years. Now, I think this is a little bit different than what we talked about. We previously talked about Pando, which is a huge colony of aspen trees in Utah. I don't think these are actually colonial. Like, I don't know that they are connected through the roots. They're not sending out rhizomes and new stalks. It's like just pieces breaking off, and then there's a clone and a clone and a clone and a copy and a copy. But they're all the same plant. They're just different pieces of the same plant. And while one might die, other pieces of that same plant continue on. Now, Pando, the aspen colony, is estimated to be somewhere between 16 and 80,000 years old. And this is kind of a similar situation, although the aspen trees can still reproduce sexually by sending out seeds and whatnot. They just happen to have spread a lot through those rhizomes. This Lomatia has no other option. It has to clone itself in order to survive.
Otherwise, yeah.
So the big question becomes, how does it stack up against Pando? So to be clear, we're doing our best, and when I say we, I mean, researchers and whatnot, to estimate the age of Pando. And there's been different numbers out there. I said one of the more recent ones was saying between 16 and 80,000 years. That's a big range, right? Like, that's not an exact number. Well, with King's Lomatia, we have another option, and that is checking the fossil record.
Oh.
What?
Yeah. So, near the current location of where King's Lomatia grows, researchers have found fossil evidence that they believe is clearly the exact same plant. And these fossils are believed to be 43,600 years old by
What?
carbon dating. So, if this species can only reduce vegetatively, then those fossils are not just from the same species, but literally from the same plant, which
Oh.
absolutely breaks my brain.
What?
You could be like looking at a fossil and then looking at a tree and going, this is literally the same tree that different parts of have been growing in this spot for that long, which
Oh my. Yeah.
is wild.
Wow.
Now, I did find a number of sources online that claim that researchers believe the tree could actually potentially be as old as 135,000 years. I'm guessing that's based on like, this is how long plants could have grown in this spot kind of type thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I tried to look at a lot of the scientific research and things like that. I could not find that number anywhere. I even looked at the source. I found a source where someone's like, oh, here's the citation for where that number came from. And I read that paper and couldn't find that number. So take that one with a grain of salt. But if this is true, that would be way older than Pando and take the crown. But since the exact age of Pando is unknown, we're kind of in a bit of a bind. I guess personally, since, if it's 135,000, definitely takes the crown as the oldest, continually living thing, plant at least. And then,
Yeah.
but if even the 43,600 number, that may actually be Pando, depending on what we look at, since that age range is so wide. And if it is only 16,000 years on the low end, we know for sure this plant as an individual was around 43,600 years ago. I think we have to give it the crown based on the best current evidence that we have. And it is called King's Lomatia. So I'm kind of like, all right, well, it's already got the title king right there.
It's already the title, yeah.
It's very cool. We keep learning more about this world, so something else could come by and unseat it from that throne. But in my mind, it now sits on that throne as like the oldest individual plant species. A lot of work is being done to preserve this plant. I just believe there's only about 600 individual plants growing in the wild, and indeed the original patch where Charles Dennison King discovered them now no longer exists. Like they don't grow there anymore. So the range has shrunk a bit since then because of all kinds of habitat pressures. So different institutions such as the Hobart Botanical Garden are doing experiments in propagation, trying to establish new areas of growth as sort of like a safety net, because there are some diseases that can attack this, and wildfire could easily come through and wipe it out. It does grow in a rainforest, so it's a wet area, so wildfire is not quite as likely to happen. But there wasn't a fire last in this area in the 1930s, and probably did impact it. So they're doing their best to save this super cool species, and the area that it is in a large national park now, which is very cool. So I wanted to tell you about this amazing plant, the King's Lomatia. My primary source was a Wikipedia article on this, and then it had lots of good sources from other places that I checked out as well, linked to that. So that's how we're kicking off the show this week. We are going to go to a break, and when we come back, it'll be Rachel.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, as naturalists, we work with a variety of animals, or we have worked with a variety of animals in our work, as they are ambassadors for various classes and for groups and different species all over whatever nature center you might be working at.
Absolutely.
A few that I've worked with a silver-faced red fox. I've worked with a couple of raptors, such as a red-tailed hawk or a barred owl and a great horned owl. But one group of animals that we generally work with quite often are snakes. Now,
Sure.
I know, Kirk, you don't super love working with the snakes.
Oh, no, that's a secret. You've let the secret out.
I'm
I
so
do a
sorry.
very good job of pretending
You
with
do.
audiences that I just think snakes are the coolest darn
They're
things
so
ever.
cool.
And I really don't enjoy working with them very much.
But that's all right because
Yep.
they
But I
are
do it,
really
yeah.
cool. Yeah. And like you have a relationship with them and you watch their body language and that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, thankfully, in Minnesota, we don't tend to deal with venomous snakes very much.
Not too often.
Not too often, and especially not in our ambassador animals. We don't
They
tend
don't make
to
great
have
ambassador
venomous
animals,
snakes.
Here,
yeah.
kids, meet this rattlesnake that
That'll
we
be
keep in
fun.
a tank. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in Minnesota, we do technically have 2 species of venomous snake. I mean, if you count hognose, I guess it's a little bit more,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
a different box to deal
Hind
with.
fang venomous. We'll do a whole
Yeah.
episode on them maybe.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, but technically there are 2 species of venomous snake here in Minnesota. There's the timber rattlesnake, which is found in southeastern portion of the state in the bluffs,
Mhm.
and technically the Massasauga rattlesnake, but it hasn't been seen here since the 80s. I did a research dive once on it, and like it was kind of seen here, and it should be here because it is found
Yeah.
literally across the Mississippi River, but it isn't technically, so it's a little touch and go there.
Yeah,
Anyway.
no one has seen one in a long time, like you said.
Exactly. So we're pretty lucky in that form where we don't have very many venomous snakes. However, as we've discussed on this podcast, there are many places that do have venomous snakes.
That's the
Yes,
first,
so
right?
true.
Yes.
Some of our listeners are in those places right now.
Exactly. Australia obviously is a favorite of us, of this podcast, being such a large island with so many strange, wild creatures and phenomenon that happen there, including a lot of venomous snakes. And Victoria, you talked about why it's so weird and why there are so many venomous snakes a few episodes ago, probably way more than a few. However, that all being said, let me introduce you to a man named Tim Friede, a snake collector from Wisconsin.
Oh, this guy.
okay.
This guy,
guy.
yes. Okay,
Oh,
you got
you
the
heard
jump
about
on
this?
me. Yes.
Oh.
Kirk, surely you've heard about this guy.
I don't know that I have.
Oh, okay.
We'll see once the story unfolds here. If it sounds familiar. I'm intrigued.
So Tim has always been interested in snakes since he was a little boy, and as he became more of an adult. And by the way, I looked at pictures, and he looks younger than I thought he was when I was learning about this story. And wild. He's like in our age range, which is okay. Now, so he was always interested in snakes.
Who's
and
me, Kimosabe?
He's like
It's a bigger range than I would care to admit.
He looks like he's between mine and yours age. He's like in his 30s or 40s, so he's in our age range.
It's right in the middle there. Okay.
Exactly. Now, as he got older, he began to learn more about venomous snakes, and he learned about anti-venom and how dangerous venomous snakes are, and the whole fact that a lot of people die from snake bites every year. And part of that is because they don't identify the snakes correctly. They don't get to the hospital quick enough. Anti-venom doesn't work. There's a lot of little pieces that can come into it. So he, as an adult, as a man who collects snakes, thought, what is the best way I could bring attention to this? Now, if you were Tim, what would you do? Victoria, you know where this is going.
Yeah, I know where this is going.
I'm gonna.
Kirk, what would you do?
I feel like I might have seen a headline. Did he let the snakes bite him?
Oh, Yeah.
Repeatedly?
Oh, more than repeatedly. So
Okay.
Tim let himself get bitten by a couple of his cobra snakes. Now,
Oh,
these are some
God.
of the more deadly snakes. And he actually sent himself to the hospital where he dropped
Yeah.
into a coma for 4 days.
Tim.
Well, and the
No.
little sort of mental health tidbit around this was the first time he let the snakes bite
Yeah.
him. It was like the day after 9/11, and his, I think, best friend had just committed suicide a few days before or something like that.
Yeah.
So he was not in a good
Oh,
mental space.
okay.
Yeah.
Poor
So
guy.
yeah. So, but going forward from that, though, he did recover from that. He came out on the other side. He was very lucky, but he did start to think, well, what I've done this now. I have these 2 snakes that I've already like bested of sorts. What if I could become immune to snake venom?
Wow.
So
Okay.
he decided to inject himself and become a lot more careful with small amounts of venom instead of a full bite from one of those snakes. And he injected himself with small amounts of venom. And over the course of time that he's done this, he's been dosed more than 600 times
Oh,
with a wide variety of
no.
venom.
You say dose.
And then dosed
Yeah.
is what it was, because he was also bitten. He's been bitten more than 200 times by snakes.
Oh boy.
So
Wow.
enter some researchers named Jacob Glanville. He was doing some he is a CEO of a biotech company, Centivax, and he was trying to see what he could do to create a broad spectrum anti-venom, a more broad spectrum. Now, there's been research into this more recently as well, and there's been some promising research regarding a more broad spectrum anti-venom that wasn't this. And he just figured, like, when they are doing how anti-venom works is they actually inject venom into a species like a horse or a mouse, and then once that animal recovers, what ends up happening is they are able to extract the anti-venom or antibodies, not the anti-venom, from the blood of that creature, and then use it to create an anti-venom because there are usable antibodies against that particular species of snake.
I think it usually is a horse because horses are so large,
Yeah.
so they have a lot of blood, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it is generally a horse. Now, Jacob was like, a lot of people own snakes. There's a lot of snake collectors out there. I bet somebody's been clumsy enough to have been bitten by some dangerous snakes and survived. Maybe they'd be willing to volunteer for this particular, or like volunteer their blood, like be able to bring, let us use their blood and see if there are any antibodies that they can use for their study. And they stumbled upon Tim.
Oh boy. They got the jackpot.
So they were actually able to, there was so much going into it about the ethics of it and like making sure it was all up to par when it came to all of this. Now, they were able to extract antibodies from Tim's blood because Tim was like, "Oh, that's cool. Sure, let's do it."
Well,
imagine
from what I read, like maybe this wasn't his original intent the first time he got bit, but like
it was not.
No, but as he kind of got into this, my understanding was he'd sort of like conceived that he could be the anti-venom holy grail eventually if like the right person came calling.
Yes.
And eventually the right person did come calling.
Exactly. And that is something that he that is mentioned. Yes. I saw that too. So it really was a good happenstance, but he was like, absolutely, I want to be a part of this. I understand, and I want to be part of this broad spectrum antibody, anti-venom. So they were able to like go into the molecular structure of Tim's blood, and they were able to create an anti-venom that worked fully against 5 different types of snake in mice, including the black mamba and several different species of cobra. And then they were able to add another molecule that has worked against some venoms and look for something in Tim's blood as well. Overall, the cocktail anti-venom that they established in mice, so far anyway, has given complete protection against 13 species of snake, partial protection against 6 others, and it's a diverse set of snakes too. It's not just one species, which is really, really difficult to do. Some of the species are some of the most deadly around, including like the king cobra and other cobra species, which is truly amazing. Like they did a phenomenal job. And yeah, they mostly focused on the Elapidae family of species, which has many of the venomous snake species.
Right.
So the fact that they were able to focus on the elapid venom to try to like have a more broad spectrum anti-venom is amazing. Now, I could obviously go on about this because wild thing for him to do, and I'm really like, thankfully, I'm glad that he did, but also this comes with a huge asterisk. Do not do this at home.
No.
Also, aside from the health effects, the article I read, at the beginning it was talking about like, he would come home from work, greet his wife and kids, and then like after dinner just go down to the basement and let snakes bite him. And I was like, he's married. And then at the end of the article, it mentioned that he was divorced. I'm like, yeah, of course he's divorced.
Yeah.
I can just imagine too, what if they came knocking and they're like, hey, we need you to donate some blood. And he was like, oh, I am deathly afraid of needles.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That would be really ironic.
It would be. So they were able to publish a paper on this. This just came out this last May. So pretty recent, very recent. It was published in Cell. The article is called Snake Venom Protection by a Cocktail of Verisilapid and Broadly Neutralizing Human Antibodies. The authors are Jacob Glanville, Mark Bellanin. Peter D. Kwong was also a very big proponent and worker on this. It was published in Cell. It is not open access, but you can absolutely probably email them and they would send you the paper. My sources otherwise were Scientific American and NPR had really good articles, as well as Columbia University Irving Medical Center also had a great article. Wild thing for him to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Please don't do it at home.
Don't do that.
Do not try this at home.
Please don't do it at home. Yeah. So there's been some movement, which is really great. We're going to take a quick break, and sorry that I got you on this, Victoria, but
that's okay.
It's up to you now.
Yeah.
You're next.
I'm next. We'll be back in a minute. Hey, we're back. If you watch episodic TV shows, you've probably encountered what's known as a bottle episode. This is where, usually to save money, most or all of the action of the episode takes place within a very confined space. And if you reflect a little, you can probably think of, on one set, exactly. You can probably think of one from your favorite TV show.
I've got a couple from Doctor Who that are going through my head right now.
It's funny you mentioned Doctor Who.
Okay.
So, one of my favorite bottle episodes, I used to be a big Doctor Who fan. I have not watched it for a number of years, but I was very big into it back in the day. And there was an episode called Midnight from 2008 with the 10th Doctor, played by David Tennant.
Is this the one on the train?
Yeah, it's like a shuttle.
Yeah, that episode scared me so bad, but it's so good.
Super creepy, very well acted. Like, nutshell summary, the Doctor's trapped on a tour bus or shuttle or whatever that's on this supposedly like life-killing surface of a planet where nothing can live because of the radiation. But the planet is made of diamonds. I highly recommend you check out the episode, see what happens. That is not what I'm here to talk about. When I first saw this episode, I thought the idea of a diamond planet was just another sort of fanciful sci-fi light idea from Doctor Who, which is the kind of show where characters are always saying things like, reverse the polarity of the neutron flow.
Awesome.
Whatever that means.
Exactly. But actually, the notion of a diamond planet is taken straight from serious astronomy.
Ooh.
And so today I'm going to be talking about diamonds in space. First, we're going to start...
Fun.
Yeah. First, we're going to start relatively close to home with some neighbors of ours from the solar system, distant neighbors, Uranus and Neptune. These are the so-called ice giants. Like the gas giants of Saturn and Jupiter, their atmospheres are largely composed of hydrogen and helium, but Uranus and Neptune also contain about 2% methane in their atmospheres, as well as some other stuff. And there's different layers. So like the outer layer of the atmosphere is where a lot of the hydrogen and helium mostly are. And then you go deeper and denser. And these planets pretty much don't really have like, there's not much of a rocky core there. It's just like thicker and thicker liquids.
Right.
So then it becomes an ocean or mantle of methane, water, and ammonia, which is referred to as ice, but it's actually extremely hot and under an insane amount of pressure.
Right.
So methane. Methane is a very simple molecule. It is just a single carbon atom with 4 hydrogen atoms attached to it. And the idea here, which was first proposed by Marvin Ross in 1981, was that under the intense pressure in the mantles of Uranus and Neptune, the carbon and hydrogen of the methane become separated, and that frees the carbon atoms to link up with each other to form a sort of diamond rain.
Yeah.
And since the diamonds would be denser than the methane, they would sink, and that would help drive convection in the metal, which would help supposedly be like what creates the magnetic field of these planets.
Right.
Of course, we don't have any direct data about what happens under the surface of Uranus or Neptune because they're very far away, and it's pretty hard to get a space probe out there. And some astronomers think that, a little bit. Some astronomers also think that having other molecules in the mix, like water and hydrogen, or ammonia, might disrupt the diamond formation. So theoretically, it seems possible that this could happen. We don't know for sure. On the supporting side, there was a recent experiment that used high-energy lasers to blast polystyrene, which it's a kind of plastic. It doesn't sound like it's that similar to methane, but it's actually somewhat structurally similar, and it also contains only carbon and hydrogen the way methane does. It's like a relatively simple polymer.
Okay.
And crucially, it's solid at room temperature. So it'll stay where you put it. Yeah.
Pretty
so
important.
when they blasted the polystyrene with the lasers, nanometer-sized diamonds formed almost immediately. And these are not just like regular lasers. They're like super intense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand how the lasers work, but they're extra lasers.
Fair.
Okay. So, possible diamond rain on Uranus and Neptune, pretty cool. Moving now beyond our solar system, we get to the strange world of carbon planets. So the rocky planets in our solar system are mostly composed of silicate rocks. So these are silica-based. But there are exoplanets that are thought to be mostly carbon-based or carbides.
Right.
One example is a planet that orbits a pulsar that's about 4,000 light years away.
Okay.
And this planet, so pulsars are, for those of you who don't remember this or never learned it, which why would you have necessarily?
We have, yeah.
Pulsars are very weird, very small, rapidly rotating stars that are thought to be the remnant cores of collapsed supergiants. And as they rotate, they emit bursts of electromagnetic radiation, which we can pick up here on Earth as radio waves. So if you think about the way a light rotates on a lighthouse, so you can see that click every time it comes around, that's kind of how we sense the radio waves. See how fast it's rotating.
Okay.
So this pulsar, which it has a string of letters and numbers, its name is not interesting. It had a little hiccup. Yeah. It had a little hiccup in its radio pulse, which led astronomers to conclude that it had a companion planet that was also there. And this planet, based on what they could determine, was extremely dense, about twice the density of lead. And
whoa.
Yeah.
That's dense.
Very dense. And some complex calculations, hand waving, blah, 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 astrophysics. They figured out that it had to have a certain relatively small size, no larger than 60,000 kilometers across, which that's still, it's less than half the diameter of Jupiter, which is still pretty large. But
yeah, that's pretty big still.
Yeah. But for the mass that it had, it's small. And they figured, based on other parameters, that it had to be the core of what used to be a white dwarf star. But most of the gases of the star were siphoned off by the gravity of the pulsar.
What? Okay.
Yeah. And made it spin faster somehow. Anyway, based on the composition of that type of star, which is very carbon rich, and the density of the planet, they figured the core had to be crystalline, and the crystal must be diamond.
Diamond, yeah.
So a giant diamond planet.
Amazing.
Probably not very hospitable.
Cool. No.
And in fact, so as I mentioned, that diamond planet, what we think is a diamond planet, is the remains of a white dwarf.
Right.
Yeah. So white dwarfs are like an evolutionary stage that some stars of medium size will eventually reach. Our sun is expected to become a white dwarf many billions of years in the future after it expands to a red giant. And at that point, they have burned off all their hydrogen and helium. They're no longer performing nuclear fusion. So any light that's emitted from them is just sort of like the remaining heat that's left over.
Sure.
Okay.
And it takes them a very long time to cool down. So,
long time.
Yeah, this would normally take a super long time, because like a million billion years, because the star would have to go through the yellow dwarf stage, and then the red giant stage, and then the white dwarf, and then cool down enough so that there could be this diamond core that would be left. But astronomers do think that they've found a star recently that's only 4.2 billion years old and is beginning this process. And it's about 104 light years away from us. So another diamond star / planet in formation.
Nice.
That's fun.
Yeah,
there must be almost an uncountable number of them actually out there then.
Yes, probably.
That's wild to think how many are just floating around out there.
And it's just a big chunk of carbon that has a lot of cultural meaning in our world.
Yeah, diamonds are not rare in nature.
No, they're not.
They're not. It's all marketing hype.
Yes,
but they're pretty.
Pretty.
They look nice.
That's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I got. My sources this week.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Thanks, Victoria.
You're welcome. So one of the articles was from August 2017 in Nature Astronomy by D. Krauss and colleagues, Formation of Diamonds in Laser Compressed Hydrocarbons at Planetary Interior Conditions. The Marvin Ross paper was in Nature from July of 81, The Ice Layer in Uranus and Neptune, Diamonds in the Sky, ? And then there was a blog post, A Planet Made of Diamond, by the Max Planck Institute for Radio Astronomy, published in astronomy.com in 2011. And then also a piece in Live Science from 2023 by Stephanie Pappas about a collapsed star turning into a diamond before our eyes. And a bit from Wikipedia as well on star life cycle and so forth.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks.
That's all we got for that episode.
I think so.
What a fun one.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next week. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach us by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can check out our website, strangebynaturepodcast.com, and you can support the show and get ad-free episodes at patreon.com/strangebynature. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.